the most forbidden places you're not allowed to visit. Just a short distance away from the beautiful canals of Venice lies an island that most locals avoid even talking about. An island surrounded by dark water, abandoned buildings, and centuries of terrifying history. This is Poveglia Island, often called one of the most haunted and forbidden islands in Italy. From a distance, it looks quiet, almost forgotten. But for hundreds of years, this small island became associated with disease, death, and isolation. During the plague outbreaks that devastated Europe, ships arriving near Venice were forced to stop here. Anyone showing signs of infection was taken onto the island and separated from the rest of society. For many of them, Poveglia was the last place they would ever see. Over time, thousands of plague victims were buried here, while others were reportedly burned to stop the disease from spreading. According to local legends, the soil itself still contains human ashes from centuries of death. Some estimates even claim that more than 100,000 people may have died on the island over time. And unfortunately, the story didn't end there. Years later, a psychiatric hospital was built on the island, isolating patients far away from the outside world. Soon, disturbing rumors began spreading about the asylum. Stories claimed patients heard screams echoing through the empty halls at night, while others spoke about strange medical experiments supposedly carried out inside the hospital walls. Then came the island's darkest legend. According to local stories, one of the doctors working at the asylum slowly lost his sanity. Haunted by the island and the suffering around him, he eventually climbed the bell tower and threw himself to his death. Whether those stories are true or simply myths created over time, Poveglia's terrifying reputation never disappeared. Today, the island remains heavily restricted to the public. Most tourists visiting Venice will never step foot there. And as the abandoned buildings continue collapsing under years of decay, Poveglia still sits alone in the Venetian lagoon, silent, empty, and trapped in one of history's darkest memories. Somewhere in the freezing waters near Iceland, an island rises from the ocean that almost no human is allowed to step on. From a distance, it barely looks real, just black volcanic land surrounded by violent waves and complete isolation. This is Surtsey, one of the youngest islands on Earth and one of the most restricted. What makes this place unusual is that humans weren't banned because of military secrets, dangerous wildlife, or hidden experiments. They were banned so nature could be left completely alone. Back in 1963, fishermen near Iceland witnessed something incredible. The ocean suddenly began erupting. Massive clouds of ash and steam exploded into the sky as magma burst from beneath the seafloor. The eruption continued for years, slowly building layer after layer of volcanic rock until an entirely new island emerged from the Atlantic Ocean. An island that had never existed before in human history. Scientists immediately realized how rare this opportunity was. For the first time, they could observe how life develops on completely new land from the very beginning. So, the island was placed under strict protection. Even today, only a small number of researchers are allowed to visit, and the rules are extremely strict. Before entering, their clothes, boots, and equipment are carefully inspected to prevent seeds, bacteria, or outside organisms from accidentally being brought onto the island, because even a tiny contamination could interfere with decades of scientific research. And slowly, life began to arrive on its own. First came seabirds, then insects, then plants slowly started growing through the dark volcanic soil. Over time, what once looked completely lifeless began transforming into a real ecosystem. And that's what makes Surtsey so fascinating. It's essentially a living snapshot of early Earth, a rare place where humanity intentionally stepped away and allowed nature to evolve without interference. Even now, most people on Earth will never be allowed to visit it, and maybe that's exactly why it still feels so mysterious. After exploring two islands that were heavily restricted from the outside world, it's time to explore something even more mysterious. Not an island hidden in the ocean, but an underground tomb that even archaeologists are afraid to fully open. Hidden beneath a massive hill in China lies a tomb that no one has entered for more than 2,000 years. a tomb so mysterious that even modern archaeologists are hesitant to fully open it. This is the tomb of Qin Shi Huang, the burial site of China's first emperor, a ruler obsessed with power, immortality, and preserving his empire forever. According to ancient records, more than 700,000 workers were forced to help construct the enormous underground complex. And the tomb itself was said to contain an entire world hidden beneath the earth. Ancient writings describe underground palaces filled with treasure, weapons, and traps designed to protect the emperor in the afterlife. They even mention rivers made from liquid mercury flowing through the tomb like miniature versions of China's rivers and seas. For centuries, many historians believed those descriptions were exaggerated myths. But decades later, scientists studying the soil around the burial mound detected unusually high levels of mercury near the site, suggesting those ancient records may have been disturbingly accurate. And that's where the mystery becomes even more fascinating, because despite modern technology, the central tomb chamber has never been opened. Archaeologists have explored surrounding areas of the complex, including one of the most famous discoveries in history, the Terracotta Army. Thousands of life-sized clay soldiers, each with unique facial features, silently standing guard for more than 2,000 years. But the emperor's actual burial chamber still remains sealed, not because nobody wants to explore it, but because researchers fear the damage opening it could cause. When parts of the Terracotta Army were first uncovered, many of the original painted colors faded almost immediately after being exposed to air. Archaeologists worry the same thing could happen inside the tomb itself on a much larger scale. Paintings could vanish, ancient materials could rapidly decay, and secrets preserved underground for over 2 millennia could be destroyed forever within days. So for now, the tomb remains untouched, silent beneath the earth. And somewhere inside that hidden chamber, China's first emperor may still rest, surrounded by the underground empire he built in his attempt to conquer death itself. Right beside New York City, hidden between rivers and skyscrapers, lies an island that almost nobody is allowed to enter. Most people living nearby don't even know it exists. No tourists visit it. No ferries stop there. And the abandoned buildings still standing have slowly been swallowed by trees and decay. This is North Brother Island, one of America's most forgotten forbidden places. From a distance, the island almost looks peaceful. Birds fly above collapsing rooftops, while thick vegetation covers the remains of old hospital buildings. But beneath that overgrowth is one of the darkest medical histories in New York. In the late 1800s, the island became home to Riverside Hospital, a quarantine center built to isolate patients suffering from deadly infectious diseases like smallpox and tuberculosis. For many people sent there, leaving the island alive was never guaranteed. And because North Brother Island sat separated from Manhattan by water, it became the perfect place to keep the sick completely isolated from society. But the island became especially infamous because of one woman, Mary Mallon, better known as Typhoid Mary. She carried typhoid fever without showing symptoms, unknowingly infecting people wherever she worked as a cook. At a time when scientists barely understood how diseases spread, she became one of the most feared women in America. Eventually, authorities forcibly quarantined her on North Brother Island, where she spent years cut off from the outside world. But the island's disturbing history didn't end there. In 1904, the passenger steamship General Slocum Disaster caught fire near the island while carrying more than 1,000 people. As flames spread across the ship, families jumped into the river trying to escape. Many drowned before reaching shore. Doctors and nurses from the island rushed to help survivors as bodies drifted through the water nearby. More than 1,000 people died. Even after that tragedy, the island continued operating for decades before eventually being abandoned completely. Today, North Brother Island remains heavily restricted to the public because it has become a protected bird sanctuary, and that's what makes the place feel so strange. Right beside one of the busiest cities on Earth sits an abandoned island filled with collapsing hospitals, forgotten history, and silence. A place the modern world moved on from, while the island itself remained frozen in time. That's it for today's video. I know I only included 4 places, but I didn't want to make the video too long since these videos take a lot of time and hard work to create. If you enjoyed it, let me know in the comments, and I'll definitely make a part 2 with even more crazy forbidden places. Until then, go check out my other videos, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.